Well, let me ask you a question. You know, we both learned lessons, obviously. If you had it to do all over again, and I get asked this all the time, would you do it all over again? All right, welcome back to another sit down. I'm here with my dear friend Bruce McNall, and what many of you don't know is Bruce was one of the major film producers in all of Hollywood, all of the industry, whatever you want to say, and he did some big movies that you all have heard of, no doubt. We'll name a couple of them. Some of you are going to like this, Weekend at Bernie's, kind of like a cult film. I get people that mentioning that film to me now.
Yeah,
you know?
Weekend at Bernie's became a big cult film. War Games was a big movie at the time. I did a movie called Blame It on Rio with Michael Caine, Demi Moore. At that time, I did a couple of movies with Emilio Estevez and Demi when they were together.
Mr. Mom.
And Mr. Mom I did with Michael Keaton.
But the one we're talking about now is a movie called The Sicilian, mob-related, of course, and Bruce is going to tell you about it.
Yeah. Again, I paid Miro Puzo $3 million for the book rights. He had just, he written The Godfather. This was going to be this part 2 of The Godfather. And I couldn't get Coppola to direct. He was busy on something else.
Too busy making wine.
Making wine, probably, yeah. And also, he was sort of done with it. He'd done The Godfather. He's like done with
I tell you this, because I don't know him real well, but I got a friend of mine who's very close with him. And they had to drag him kicking and screaming to do Godfather 3. He didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Did not, and he shouldn't have done it at the end of the day. But now all he wants to do is go
sell wine.
And sell wine.
Exactly.
And you know what? I don't blame him because we visit his vineyards quite a bit. And
Director's
what
cut.
a life. Yeah. Oh, terrific.
Director's
anyway,
cut. So anyway, so I ended up with Michael Cimino. He did The Deer Hunter, won the Academy Award for it. Then he did Heaven's Gate, which is one of the great disasters of film.
Warren Beatty, right?
Yeah, I think so. And then what happened was he made another movie about Chinatown. I forget the name of it. Year of the Dragon.
Right.
And it was produced by Dino De Laurentiis. Dino and I were good friends. And so when they suggested Michael Cimino, I was a little worried because of Heaven's Gate. So I talked to Dino about his experience with Michael on Year of the Dragon. He said, no, it's fine. It came on a budget. No problem. I said, okay.
For those of you who don't know, Dino De Laurentiis, huge Italian producer at the time, did King Kong and a whole bunch of movies.
Yeah, big producer. So I said, okay. I said, Michael, what's final cut? And Dino says, yeah, I give him final cut on Year of the Dragon. Okay, now we're stuck. So we hire Michael Cimino to make this movie. I knew there was a problem to start with because he hires the star of the movie, who is a good guy named Chris Lambert, and he's a Frenchman playing an Italian for an American audience. Okay, well, I wasn't sure about that, but all right. Then he hires a German lady to play, again, an Italian in the second lead. And again, I'm getting a little worried. But okay, so we filmed the movie. We're about halfway through the movie. And there's a truck strike in all of Italy, including Sicily. There's strikes in Italy all the time. So, oh my God, what do? We're shooting in Castellamare, which was a very well-known mafia place too.
Well, that was just so you know, one of the origins of the mafia.
Correct.
In Italy was Castellamare.
Yeah, it was one of the origins of the whole thing. So the production designer said, "Don't worry, I'll talk to these guys. You got to meet with them." Okay. So about 4 or 5 older guys come. They don't speak any English. I could speak some Italian, but it wasn't great. So I had guys with me to help translate. And I said, this strike is costing me $200,000 a day. Is there anything you could do to help me stop the strike? Absolutely. Don't worry, we'll take care of it. I said, okay, great. How much would you like for that? Figure you ask $1 million or something. We want to be in the movie. That's what they wanted. Just little parts of the movie. So when you see the movie now, you'll see the baker is a mob guy, the butcher is a mafia fellow, and these are the bosses. And by the way, they would always put down the American mafia.
Well, let me tell you this.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, especially back, when did you shoot this film?
1987.
1987. The mafia ran Sicily, no doubt about it.
Right.
I mean, they had a lot of power, a lot of authority, and they do today, still to a great degree. But in the 80s, when they got together with the United States and Giuliani, and they started to, work in concert with each other, they started locking up a lot of mafia guys. But back then, they ran Sicily especially.
Yeah.
So they can get anything done.
Anything done. So
and just to say this too, I mean, they called us kind of, I don't want to say they looked down on us.
Poor cousins or something.
Yeah, they're poor cousins. But I will tell you this, for people that don't know, the Mafia in Italy and Cosa Nostra here, they were born, obviously, Cosa Nostra was born out of the Mafia in Italy, but they're two separate organizations. And we didn't share our secrets with them. When they came over, we were respectful to them. But two separate organizations, we were told not to share our secrets.
Right.
And they had just different policies, just so, to educate people a little bit. Back in Italy, you don't want to get on their bad side. You could be a judge, a lawyer, family. If they don't like you, you're gone. They're taking you out.
Yep.
Here in America, we didn't do that. We didn't bother law enforcement. We didn't bother people's families. We didn't go after the media, just different policies. So they were a little bit different.
Yeah, the sense that I got was that they're quite a bit more violent when they did. I know that the mafia here in the States is obviously also born in violence. It seemed to me that these guys didn't, like you say, didn't care too much who they went after. If they didn't like you, you got a problem, Right. So anyway, we strike ends. These guys are in the movie, and it ended with a wrap party at the end. We bring all the stars, people who worked on the movie, and we bring the mafia guys. Mm-hmm. They say, we're going to have this restaurant. We go, okay. So I drive up to the restaurant, and here are all these guys on the rooftops of the restaurant with what they call la para, which are sawed-off shotguns. Mm-hmm. We got in there, and I said to one of the mob guys, I said, is that really necessary? Oh, you never know. He said, it's better to be safe. So I said, okay, thank you very much. So I ate quickly and left. But
that's the kind of security you want when you're in Italy. You want them on your side, watching out for you.
Exactly,
for sure.
Exactly. So that was the Sicilian, and the movie came out. Well, I shouldn't say that. First,
what happened with he wanted a director's cut?
On the director's cut, he produced a movie that was 4.5 hours long. Now, nobody's going to see a 4.5 hour movie.
You probably had to deliver it at 2 hours.
I had to deliver it with Fox in 2 hours and 6 minutes, I think. I said to Michael, you can't do this. That's my movie. I have final cut. So I go to the Directors Guild, and we go there and we say, this is what's happened. They found in our favor, which rarely happens with the Directors Guild, who represents the directors. And they said to him, you got to cut it back to what the contract had. Mm-hmm. So what does he do? Takes a pair of scissors and cuts it in half.
Cut the actual film in half?
Film in half. That's it. Here it is. I said, well, that's not going to quite work. So we went back to the Directors Guild. Now we sue him. And we win the lawsuit. So he recuts it. And he removes every action scene in the movie. Mm. So, for example, there's a scene in the church where everybody's in the church. And the next thing he cuts to, they're all dead. You don't know how they died.
How they died. Right?
You don't know anything about anything. So obviously that was a problem. Eventually we ended up parting our ways, and I had to get another person in to re-edit the film and do a whole. And unfortunately, because of that, the film didn't do a lot of business. It got a fair amount of acclaim, believe it or not, but it didn't do what Godfather did. I mean, it was maybe $10 or $15 million at the time. But not a big film.
I remember watching. You should watch the movie, Sicilian. You could probably get it on Netflix or something like that. It's funny. You get stuck with a director. I remember I was a producer on Savage Streets, movie with Linda Blair,
right?
Which, by the way, a cult film. I'm still collecting royalties on that.
That's good.
I can't believe it. But Linda could not get along with the director. And we had to hold her hand throughout the whole film. She would argue with him. He hated her. He wanted to get rid of her. I said, the movie is about her. She's the one that plays the vigilante. But what happens, as you know, with a director, you're kind of stuck because you can't fire him halfway through and bring somebody else in. And if they want to exert themselves a little bit, either you kill them and just end it, or you bear with them.
Well, that was an option you had. I didn't have that option at the time.
That's true.
If I had the option, and if I had known you back then, I would have definitely made that call.
Well, it's funny you say it because I had to take this guy into the woodshed, so to speak, and said, listen, there's a lot of money on line here with this movie. You're either going to do it right with her or we're going to have a problem. And when a mob guy says you're going to have a problem, you don't want to go any further than that.
Further than that. So
he got the message.
Yeah, I got the message. So that was the Sicilian. And again, I've produced a lot of movies. Most recently, things like Alpha Dog with Justin Timberlake and Nick Cassavetes directed.
Big movie, yeah.
It's a big movie.
You're good friends with Nick, right?
Yeah. Nick Cassavetes and I are good friends. He's an incredible talent. For those who don't know, he was a director of The Notebook, which is probably the most famous thing he has done.
Oh, my wife and daughters love that movie.
Yeah. So, they're very good friends. And so that's what happened with the movies. And so I made a lot of movies in those days. And it led to a lot of friendships. One of them being with John Candy, who's from Toronto, as Gretzky was. And it led me to ending up with a football team. I was on the board of directors of Hollywood Park Racetrack because I owned a lot of thoroughbred horses. I was the leading owner in America for 7 years straight in thoroughbred racing.
You hear all of this stuff now. I always said one thing I lament with Bruce. I said, Bruce, I had to meet you on the way down instead of on the way up. If we would have met on the way up, between my gas racket and the thing, we would have owned this country.
Owned it. Absolutely owned it.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, I was lucky enough. I'm the only owner in America to have won what they call the Arc de Triomphe twice. That's the biggest race in the world.
Right?
In France. It's the biggest race in the world at that time. It was what you would consider the Breeders' Cup today. So we had a lot of that. And then Gretzky says to me one day, God, I love the horse things, and you got to put me on a horse sometime. I said, oh, geez, Wayne, it's such a risky thing. And I said, okay. So I buying a horse, and his name is Samaras, and another horse. And so these two horses we buy, one of them ends up winning the Washington, D.C. International, and then later on the Arlington Million. We paid $400,000 for the horse. We syndicated him for $16 million. So Wayne was happy, shall we say. And then Samaras goes on and wins the Arc de Triomphe. So he's in two horses. He wins the two biggest races in the world.
Money breeds money.
It's unbelievable. I mean, both luck and whatever. So, and as part of that, again, John Candy was a hockey fan, being Canadian, and he knew Wayne a bit, and I was on the board of directors of Hollywood Park Racetrack, and a fellow named Harry Ernest was on the board also, and we were talking one day, and he says, I own the Toronto Argonauts, the football team in what they call the CFL, Canadian Football League, in Canada, but I want to sell it. And I said, okay, how much? $5 million. I don't know anything about the value, but it sounded to me like $5 million for a football team sounds cheap.
Especially
so
today,
I said, where do you play? The Sky Dome. Sky Dome was the incredible stadium at that time, still is, holds 55,000 people. So I said, makes some sense. So I asked Gretzky, Wayne, what do you think of the Argonauts? Oh, I loved them when I was a kid. I loved it. That's a great deal. Let's do it. I asked John Candy the same thing. He said, yeah, let's do that. So we ended up buying the Toronto Argonauts. Then I have this idea. At that time, the Argonauts were pulling in about 20,000 people a game. And this stadium held like 55,000. So I think, wonder if I could do a semi-Gretzky deal. So I think about it. And
I know where you're going with this.
So I go and I say, okay, who is the number one draft pick this year in the NFL? And it was Rocket Ismail from Notre Dame. Big player, Heisman Trophy, the whole thing. Definitely number one pick.
Right.
So I get to his mother. I meet with the mother and this, that. Finally with Rocket. And I said, Rocket, look, you're going to end up at Cincinnati or something, and you're going to be running back kicks. That's what's going to happen. If you come to Canada, you'll be the biggest name in the history of Canada's
Without a doubt.
football. Big. So after a little bit of convincing and $17 million later for 4 years, I'm going to tell you a story that very few people know. Okay? Rocket said, but I want to play in the NFL. I said, okay, where do you want to really play? I want to be a Raider. I said, okay. I call Al Davis. I said, Al, I'm going to get Rocket Ismail. What do you mean going to go? He's the number 1 pick in the draft for the NFL. You're not going to get him. I said, I'm going to get him. Let me ask you, if I pay $17 million for 4 years for this kid, would you pick him up in year 3 and 4? Absolutely. He said, what you have to do is you have to draft him, though, because I'm going to take him in the first round. For our team, he won't be available. So therefore, you have to take him in the 4th or 5th round, which he does. Mm-hmm. So everybody's laughing at him. He said, Bruce has already signed the guy. He's not available in the draft anymore.
Right.
He picks him up. And so Rocket, in fact, plays for me. The first year, we had everything. It was crazy. John had the Belushi and everybody doing the songs beforehand. We had Celine Dion at halftime, and it was a crazy time. We immediately sold out. 55,000, bang, bang. More than that, he so captured the attention and interest in the place that it did almost a Gretzky kind of thing. And also, he was a great player. Mm-hmm. Came to the point where we were the finals, they call the Grey Cup, which is the Super Bowl in Canada. And he had a great season. And Doug Flutie was the quarterback at that time of Calgary, the team we're playing against. Mm-hmm. Flutie had just thrown with like a minute left in the game, threw a touchdown pass, takes a 5-point lead in the game. So I say, oh God. So it's freezing in Winnipeg, like 40 below zero. You couldn't breathe, couldn't move. We go down to the field. I see Rocket. I said, Rocket, hey, it's a great game, man. But I thought we'd lost. He turns to me and says, you don't pay me $17 million for nothing. I got this. They kick off to him. He runs it back for a touchdown. And we win the game.
Wow.
And we win this with the Grey Cup at that time in 1992. So it was an experience, and everybody loved it. It was great. Unfortunately, and then I tried another end around. Typical me, I guess. Toronto is the only city in North America with a population that it has with no football team, no NFL team. So I really wanted to bring the NFL there. So I had talked to the owner of the Cleveland Browns, who were going to think about moving anyway, about coming to Toronto. So I had an exhibition game that they played in Toronto. Fans loved it. I thought, this is a real opportunity. Went to apply. Buffalo, being close to Toronto, rejected it, refused it, and it had to be a unanimous vote. So that was the end of that.
That was it.
And because of that, then I had a real problem because the fans really wanted the NFL. They thought I could get the NFL there. When I couldn't, they kind of dropped off. Mm-hmm. So we didn't win the second year. Then the third and fourth year, Rocket goes off to the Raiders. And he had a very good career in the NFL after that, with Carolina, the Raiders, Dallas. So, so I had the experience of that as well.
Sounds like a lot of backdoor deals like we used to do on the street. But
it's very similar in a way. I mean,
very similar. Except it's illegal.
Right.
Yeah.
Mainly. So it is amazing because really all of business, but professional sports especially, is all about the back doors, what's really happening out there. Howard Baldwin, you mentioned, my very good friend. Mm-hmm. He owned the Hartford Whalers when I first met him. He then ended up owning the Pittsburgh Penguins after that. He also was instrumental in getting San Jose and Minnesota and several other teams. But we had a thing between ourselves and the Penguins. Mm-hmm. When I needed a player, I would trade a player to him, and I know I could get him right back again.
Right.
So Luc Robitaille had the experience of me trading him to Pittsburgh and then getting him back again when we needed him for the playoffs. Marty McSorley, the same story. Mm-hmm. So we had, but again, it's the things that the average fan doesn't realize what's really going on in terms of
they don't know
the level of that. So
I got to tell you this before we go on. Bruce introduced me to Luke Robitaille, and who was the other guy? I forget.
Martin McSorley.
McSorley,
Gretzky.
and there's another guy from I don't know if he was from Detroit, big guy from Detroit Red Wings. Chelios.
Yeah, Chelios.
I think it was from Detroit.
Yeah, he was.
The Red Wings.
He was.
So anyhow, I get friendly with all of them. You and Howard introduced me, and they're all going to Hawaii with their wives. So they kind of like me. They like the mob stuff. They love the stories. So they said, Mike, you got to come with your wife. My wife met them all. They all got along. So we go to Hawaii because the guy that ran in Maui, the guy that ran the Four Seasons Hotel was a Canadian,
Right.
and he loved hockey. So every summer, I think, he would put a hockey rink, an ice rink, right on the beach, on the sand. And all the guys would go over and they would play a big charity deal. So they invited me over. We went, we had a blast. I'll tell you, those guys are wild. Hockey guys are wild.
Yeah, we can't discuss that a lot now.
No.
Okay.
We had a blast. And Luke says to me one day, he said, Mike, let's go play golf. I said, I don't play golf. I never lift up a club in my life. I said, baseball, football, yeah. Come on, we're going to go. We're going to play scramble. We're going to have fun. So we started playing golf. I don't know if you're in Maui, you know for sure. The golf courses, every hole, you're looking out at the ocean.
Beautiful. I
fell in love with the game from that point on. Then I said, Luke, I'm in love. He said, come on, I'm going to do you another favor. And he takes me down to TaylorMade. And, Luke walks in, everybody's great, and they give him clubs, and they go, hey, give my friend a set of clubs too. So I'm picking out clubs, and he got me my first set of golf clubs. Yeah, and I became a crazy golfer ever since then. So it was great. But you know what I'm listening to, Bruce? You, everything you touched at one time just turned to gold, honestly.
Yeah.
You started out with the coin business. You made a real success there. You got into sports, real success. You reach for the clouds. You bring Gretzky in. Who else was going to do that? I mean, it took a lot to spend that kind of money, bring him here. You didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
You took a chance, paid off. Get involved in the movies, make some big movies, made a lot of money, made a lot of friends around town. And then, I kind of compare mine a little bit differently because I'll give you credit. You did everything above board. I see it that way. Even the stuff you got in trouble for me, it was business stuff. It wasn't anything, like I did. But we both kind of made it to the top. And then, in a big way, hundreds of millions of dollars. And then, from some mistakes that we made, it all comes tumbling down. And we ended up, going to prison and paying fines and having judgments. And in my case, I had people mad at me. They weren't mad at you, but because I had the whole mob stuff to deal with. And then here we are all these years later. And, listen, we're alive and we're breathing and we're living. And
we're all good.
Yeah. And, I know there's some lessons to be learned. And my viewers, I think one thing that they appreciate, I never glorify my past life.
Right.
I don't like to talk bad about anybody, especially guys that are not here to defend themselves. And look, Bruce, I left the life not because I was mad at anybody. I'm not mad at anybody, and I'm not, talking bad about it. I left the life because I knew it was in trouble. There was no doubt about it. The government was winning with the RICO law and the Sentence Reform Act, the Bail Reform Act, and I wanted to preserve a life for my family. So I made the best possible arrangement I could for myself. You took it like a man, took the plea, admitted to what happened, went to jail, came out, and now we have a life. It worked out in a way, even though it's not the same as it was before.
No, not the same. But in many ways, I'll tell you, for me, I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
My crime was bank fraud.
Mm-hmm.
What took place was, in the 80s especially, the banks were loose with money.
Very loose,
And
I remember.
Very much like the guards, who wanted to, the bankers all wanted to come to the games. They wanted to hang with the movie stars and this kind of thing. And they actually helped direct some of my people as to what to do, because we ended up submitting false financial statements.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely illegal. Did I know it? Some.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, yes. And I decided, I made a deal with the government that if I took they only cared about me.
Right.
There was indictments of, I don't know, like 20 people.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, look, if I plead, everybody else walks. That's a deal I made. And so, everybody else, a couple had to plead guilty to a felony, but no time. And I felt that was the right thing to do. And that's one of the reasons why I think later people feel good about me in that regard.
Yes.
But, also I learned a lot from that, because you know, when you're on top, everybody loves you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're all kissing me. You know, they're just whatever you want to do. You know, they're just in love. When you hit the skids, you don't know what's going to happen. And I was touched by the fact that, you know, what Gretzky did of not having his jersey retired, and Luc Robitaille and these kind of people coming continuously to come
And they always
visit
spoke
me.
well about you, because even when you went away and I was hanging with them, always spoke well about you.
As a matter of fact, when your father was in Milan, Michigan, which is the place I ended up at the last,
Mm-hmm.
had a funny incident because Luke was playing for Detroit at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And he was playing the Avalanche one day, and Rob Blake, who was a great player for me over the years.
By the way, Milan, Michigan, you mean the prison there?
The prison there.
Federal prison, yeah.
The federal prison, that's where I ended up. That's where I got released from.
Right.
And
my dad spent several years there.
Yeah.
I don't know, you weren't there at the same time as him, though. I don't think so.
I don't think so. I was after, I believe.
Right.
And it's a tough place.
Yeah.
It's not a
freezing cold in the winter.
Freezing cold in the
My
winter.
dad used to say, Mike, I've never been in a place so cold.
No, it's a horrible place in that regard. It was the oldest federal prison in America at the time. And, you know, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but, and also although it's a medium, it's sort of a medium high.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had a lot of people doing a lot of time there, and a lot of tough guys and a lot of gang members.
Mm-hmm.
So I got along with everybody. It was great. And one day, Luc Robitaille decides to bring Rob Blake and come visit me in Milan, Michigan. So they do, and they walk in. I tell them right off the bat, please don't bring anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do not bring a thing. Forget the guards. Forget about it. They do. They left it all in the car just in case.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
okay, great. And they sat down and they're looking around, and, you know, Luke and Rob Blake are big guys. You know, these are hockey players and tough guys. They were terrified. Luke would tell you this day, I was the most scared of my life. It's a visiting room.
I know.
Nothing's going to happen. It's okay. What did this guy do? What did this guy do? What did he do? I don't know. I don't ask. You know?
Well, just say that. That's you never ask anybody in prison what you're in there for.
Yeah.
You don't ask that. That's
Don't
the
ask.
question you don't. They want to tell you, that's up to them, but you don't ever ask.
Never ask. So I don't know. I don't ask. You know, and they were fascinated by the whole thing, but scared to death. So it's kind of funny and then I found out later on, when they left, they got escorted out because the guards wanted to make sure that they were safe.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, got a bunch of stuff.
Yes.
And, you know, so I said to the guards, I said, I don't want to know about it. I don't, you know.
Yeah, you don't.
I don't want to get involved. I don't know anything about anything.
Well, let me ask you a question. You know, we both learned lessons, obviously. Yep. If you had it to do all over again, and I get asked this all the time, would you do it all over again?
Absolutely.
You would?
Absolutely. In fact, there was an article many years ago in, I think, the Toronto Globe and Mail, or one of the big Canadian papers, and they said, would you do 5 years in prison and have Bruce McNall's life? Came back 96% said yes. You know?
I get it.
Because, you know, let's face it, I wrote a book called It Was Fun While It Lasted.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fun while it lasted. You know, we live a life, you know, you try to do the best you can. We make mistakes. You made mistakes. I made mistakes. We paid for our mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you learn from that. And what I would do things differently.
Exactly.
Okay, I wouldn't do the same things. The biggest thing that affected me the most negatively in the whole process were my kids.
Yeah.
You know, they were 8 and 10 at the time when I went to prison, and it definitely affected them in a negative way. And, you know, if I had known what was going to happen in hindsight, of course, I wouldn't have done it for them.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I always felt I could fix the problem. You know, I'd fixed everything in my life. Every business thing I always fixed. I was a fixer. And I thought this was a minor issue and we'll deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Or when it became a bigger issue, I realized, okay, it's going to take a little more work. But I was in the process of very large transactions with the Kings and the Lakers and the Forum. With Sony.
And you ran out of time.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
But it's always a feeling that the next one will be okay, fix everything.
You know, you and I are so alike in that regard, because I always think I can handle my biggest thing. I used to tell my wife, don't worry about it. And whenever I says that, she said, don't tell me that, don't worry about it. Because before they picked me up on a parole violation, I said, don't worry about it, nothing's going to happen. The next day I'm back in jail, you know, so you can't fix everything all the time. And, you know, so I don't even use that expression anymore, don't worry about it, because when she hears that, she worries about it.
Yeah.
But, look, I think we're both very fortunate to be sitting here.
We are.
And Bruce, I can go on with you for hours because there's so much more to your life. And I know that you're in talks with maybe a television show or movie.
Yeah,
we both have
Nick
that.
Cassavetes also wrote a pilot for a episodic series, and also a breakdown for many episodes. And actually, Howard Baldwin and his wife Karen want to produce it, and they've done a lot of these things.
Sure.
So I said, okay. So they're out working out.
And their Academy Award, they produced Ray,
which won an Academy Award for them.
Yeah,
so it was they're very successful, and so we'll see what happens. Who knows?
We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, we enjoy our life. We're living out here in sunny California, and it's good to be friends for over 20 years now.
Well, yeah, because I went to prison in 97.
That's right. And I got out in 95. I went to work with Howard in 96 on this. So we met around 96.
96.
Wow.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Getting old, Bruce.
At
we're still here. We're still here.
We somehow.
Yeah, we
made it through
a lot of
it
them,
so far. Exactly.
Anyway, listen, great talking to you again.
Anytime.
And, we're going to do this again for sure. For all of you people out there, Bruce McNall, very, very dear friend, is my first sit down. Thank you again. For those of you that subscribe to my YouTube channel, I appreciate it very much. We're growing so quick because of all of you. We're working hard, giving you the best content we possibly can. And, for those of you that have signed on to michaelfranzese.com, to our coaching site, terrific. Thank you very much. We got over 4,000 people in it. A lot of people have signed up. They can do that every single day. So thank you for all of that. Really appreciate it. We're going to keep working hard to give you the best. God bless. Stay healthy. Take care. See you next time.